Hello and welcome to the channel. Today we are going to learn how to draft a basic bodice block with a closed dart. To begin, you will need the following tools: measuring tape, pencil. I used marker instead of pencil, but you need a pencil, curve and ruler, scissors, then pins. You will also need accurate body measurement for the following. Start by drawing a straight line to use as the start point for the other measurements. This line will be our center front line. Draw a perpendicular line at the top side of the line you just drew, which will be the shoulder line. Now on the shoulder line, measure and mark the neck width measurement, and on the center front line, measure and mark the neck depth measurement for the front. Join the points to create a little rectangle like so. Using the curved side of the ruler, draw the neck curve like so. This is a basic neck design, so it will give you something like a t-shirt neck. Now we need to place our shoulder measurement. The shoulder measurement I am using for this illustration is 15.25. So on the shoulder line, I'll measure 15.25 like so and mark. Now from the point we just made, we will go down by 3 centimeters to create our shoulder slope. Join the shoulder slope point to the neckline to create the shoulder line like so. Now we need to place our armhole measurement. So to do that, you will measure and mark half your armhole circumference measurement, which in this case is 18.2 centimeters. So I'll measure and mark 18.2 centimeters like so. Draw a straight line to create the chest line like so. With a straight line, join the shoulder and the chest line like so. To create the armhole curve, we need to find the midpoint of the armhole line, then go in by 1.25 like so. Now on the chest line, measure and mark 1/4 of your bust circumference measurement, which in this case is 21.6 centimeters. So I'll measure and mark 21.6 centimeters on the chest line like so. Now join the chest line, the 1.25 mark, and then the shoulder line like so with a curve. Now we need our bust line. So to do that, from the shoulder, you measure shoulder to bust measurement, which in this case is 25.4 centimeters. So from the shoulder, you measure 24 centimeters down like so. Draw a straight line to create the bust line like so. Now we need our waist measurement. So from the shoulder, measure shoulder to waist measurement, which in this case I am using 40.5 centimeters. So I'll measure 40.5 centimeters from the shoulder down like so. Create the waist line by drawing a straight line like so. Now we need our hip line. So we will measure our shoulder to hip measurement, which in this case is 61 centimeters. So from the shoulder, measure 61 centimeters like so. and mark. Draw a straight line to create the hip guideline like so. Now let me go ahead and label all the lines. Now we need to place our waist measurement. To do that, you will measure 1/4 of your waist circumference measurement. So 1/4 of the waist circumference I am using is 16.5. So I will measure and mark 16.5 on the waist guideline like so. Now I need to add the dart that I'll be taking, which is 2.5 centimeters. So I'll add 2.5 centimeters to the 16.5 and mark like so. Now on the hip line, measure and mark 1/4 of your hip measurement, which in this case is 22.85 centimeters. So I'll measure and mark 22.85 centimeters like so. Now join these points to create the side seam line like so. Now we need to place our darts, and to do that we will use our nipple to nipple measurement. So the nipple to nipple measurement I am using for this illustration is 7.62. So on the waistline, I'll measure and mark 7.62 on the waistline like so. I'll do the same on the bust line and then on the hip line. From the hip line, come up by 5 centimeters before you draw the dart line. Then from the bust line, go down by 2.5 centimeters. Join the points you have just created with a straight line like so. Now on the waistline, we will divide the dart we added there equally on both sides of the line. So the dart we added is 2.5. So we will measure 1.25 on one side of the line and 1.25 at the other side of the line like so. Now join these points to the tip of the line like so. Our basic block is ready. A block does not have any seam allowance added to it, but I'll be adding seam allowance to this to show you how to go about it when you are cutting it on your fabric. Since I'll be cutting the center front unfold, I will not be adding any seam allowance at the center front side. At the bottom, I'll be adding 2.5 centimeters seam allowance, and at the side seam I'll be adding 2.5 at the side seam to create our side seam allowance. I am adding 1.25 at the armhole side and the shoulder and then the neck to create the armhole seam allowance, the shoulder seam allowance, and then the neck seam allowance. So when you are cutting, you need to cut on the red line, and then when you are sewing, you sew on the green lines. The front part of the bodice is ready, so I'll go ahead and cut it before I start drafting the back. The back neck depth I used is 2.75, and the width is the same as the front, which is 6.6. Now we need to place the back armhole, so I'll measure from the shoulder slope 18.2 to create the armhole line. Mark this point. On the point you just mark, draw a straight line to create the chest line like so. Join the shoulder line to the chest line. To get a straight line, I went ahead and measured the shoulder measurement on the chest line before joining the shoulder line to the chest line. Go ahead and label the chest line as CL. Now on the chest line, measure and mark the bust measurement, which in this case is 21.6 centimeters. So I'll measure and mark 21.6 centimeters on the chest line like so. Look for the midpoint of the armhole line and mark it. Now with your curve, join the shoulder, the point you made, and then the chest line like so. Now we need to place our bust line. To get that, we will measure and mark our shoulder to bust measurement, which in this case is 25.4 centimeters. So from the shoulder, I will measure and mark 25.4 centimeters like so. Draw a straight line on this point like so. You can label this line as your bust line, that's BL. Now we need to place our waistline. So we will measure our waist. So we will measure our shoulder to waist measurement, which in this case is 40.5 centimeters. So from the shoulder, measure down 40.5 centimeters like so and mark. Draw a straight line on the point you just made to create the waistline like so. Now we need to place our hip measurement. So from the shoulder, we will measure our shoulder to hip measurement, which in this case is 61 centimeters. So from the shoulder, measure 61 centimeters and mark like so. Join this point with a straight line like so. Go ahead and label the rest of the lines. So the waistline WL, hip line HL, like so. Now we need to place our waist circumference measurement. So our full waist circumference measurement divided by 4 is 16.5. So on the waistline we will measure 16.5 and mark like so. Then we will add 1.25 dart allowance to it. Now we need to place our waist measurement. So to do that, we will divide our full waist circumference measurement by 4, which in my case gave me 16.5 centimeters. So I will measure and mark 16.5 centimeters on the waistline like so. Now add 1.27 to this measurement. This is for our dart. Now on the hip line, measure and mark 1/4 of the hip circumference measurement. So in this case, the 1/4 of the hip circumference measurement is 22.85. So measure and mark 22.85 centimeters like so. Join the marks you have made to create the side seam line like so. We need to place our dart. So on the hip line, measuring from the center back line, measure 7.62 centimeters and mark like so. Repeat the same process on the waistline and the chest line like so. From the chest line, go down by 2.5 centimeters like so and mark. And from the hip line, go up by 5 centimeters like so and mark. Join these marks with a straight line like so. Now on the waistline, measure and mark 6.35 on both sides of the line you just created like so. Join these points to the tip of the line like so to create your back dart. The back part of the basic bodice block is also ready. So I'll do the same as I did for the front by adding seam allowance and then cut for you to see. I am adding 2.5 centimeters to the center back for zip allowance. I am also adding 2.5 centimeters to the bottom of the bodice for folding. I am also adding 2.5 centimeters to the side as side seam allowance. Then I'll add 1.25 centimeters to the armhole, shoulder line, and then the neckline. The back pattern of the basic bodice is also ready, so I'll go ahead and cut it, then show you the end result. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, like and share. Thank you. This is the front and back pattern.